Take your Bibles this morning and turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 1. And we're going to have a lesson this morning about creation. And before I do, I wanted to say this. Brother Roger and I have been talking, and I thought we was on TV now. And so I was talking to Brother Roger about we might ought to get us a hair transplant. Dye that stuff and get it styled where we'd fit in with TV. But then Michael tells me we're not on TV. We're on YouTube. Now I'm not sure I understand that because I've been on the InterTube before, but I don't think I've ever been on YouTube, so I wasn't quite sure what that means. But at any rate, we're not on TV. And so that kind of helps us out because this hair transplant thing was getting to be complicated. See, right off I realized Brother Roger, in order to have a transplant, he had to have a donor. And we was thinking about, I was thinking about donors, and I was thinking, well, it needs to be somebody kind of mashed up. I was thinking about a tall, big guy. Well, of course, Jay comes to mind right off. Jay ain't got anything spare, so he's not going to be much of a donor. So it was getting to be complicated. Now I find out we're not on TV, so we ain't got to worry about it. But we are on YouTube. All right? The sermons are on YouTube. The Sunday school lessons are on YouTube. And I said all that to help draw attention to that so that you'll use that. Not only use it for yourself, but that you'll talk about it. Michael told me that the lesson about salvation had something like 90 likes, I think, last Sunday, somewhere close to that. So that's good, all right? But you need to tell people about it and say, look this up. Hear my preacher, hear my Sunday school teacher, here it is. And use that to help spread the word that people can hear the Bible teaching and Bible preaching from this church on YouTube, all right? If you don't know how to do that, you can call Michael. I know how to get on the InterTube, but I'm not sure I know how to get on YouTube. So talk to Michael. He'll let you know what you got to do about getting on the YouTube. But pass that along, all right? Talk to people about it. Just tell them and encourage them to get on the YouTube and hear your church. Now this morning we're going to start a lesson about creation. And we're going to be in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, and the story of creation. And then there are a few things I wanted to say concerning the matter of creation. And if we don't get it all done this Sunday, we'll start again next Sunday. But this is an important matter, especially in our day and time, with all of the information and misinformation that's out there about where we came from. And I want to give you some information about evolution and about the creation story, and maybe give you a little bit of insight into some of the things that are going on there, and maybe give you the ability to talk, especially those of you that have children, to talk to your children about creation and help them answer some of the questions. But in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, the Bible says, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night, and the evening and the morning was the first day. And God said, Let there be a firmament." That's an expanse, like the heavens. And He said, "Let there be a firmament, and in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called He seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass and herbs yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herbs yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after its kind. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning was the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and the fowls that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of the heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowls multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind, cattle, creeping things, and the beasts of the earth after kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. Now here's the story of God's creation, and immediately there are two questions that come to mind, and two great things that people ask about this. First of all is a question that comes from skeptics, and that is, if you notice in verse 2, the Bible says, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God made the light day, and the darkness he called night. The evening and the morning was the first day. So you got light and dark, but then you don't have the sun and the moon till day 4. So skeptics of this passage and skeptics of the Bible say that you've got God with light and dark on day 1, but you don't have sun and moon to day 4. So how does that work? And so they use that as a reason to deny this as being a literal account of creation. But here are a couple of things I'd like to say about it. First of all, in Revelation 21:23, we're going to have another time when there's no need for the sun in order to shine light. God said in the new city, Jerusalem, in the new heaven, that new city would not need the sun. He didn't say the sun wouldn't be there, but it says they wouldn't need the sun because God's light from himself would be adequate light for that city. So there is such a thing as light without the sun. Let me ask you this. Can you have light without the sun? Well, can man make light? And y'all got a flashlight? That flashlight got a little sun in it? No, you can make light without the sun, can't you? Well, yeah. Well, if man can make light without the sun, don't you think God can make light without the sun? Right. I don't really see that that's a problem, that there's not going to be, that there's light without the sun. Secondly, in Genesis 1:14, when Genesis 1:14, when God created the sun, he created it for far more than light. He says he created the sun and the moon and the stars for signs and for seasons and for days and years. In other words, we were having light and dark periods before there ever was a sun and a moon. But God created the sun and the moon and the stars to add to that so that we would have them for the signs and the seasons, the years and the days. So God took what he already had, which was light and dark that was coming and going, and he added to that a sun and a moon and stars that gives us even greater benefit. And so the sun and the moon and the stars were not just for light. It's not like if you take the sun and the moon out, God can't have light. God did have light. And we did have this rotation of day and night, the evening and the morning, even before there was a sun. The sun and the moon was not necessary. God could have left it just like he had it. He could have left it with the light and the dark coming and going without a sun and a moon. But he chose to add to that process a sun and a moon and the stars. And man, there's a lot of benefit to those things. The sun and the moon and the stars, there's a lot of benefit to those other than just light. We could just have light and dark coming and going. But instead, God was good enough and wise enough to give us not just light and dark coming and going, but to give us the sun and the moon and the stars. How wonderful that is, that God's creation. So don't be dismayed when you hear somebody criticize the creation account. Don't buy into that business of, well, it can't be true because you had light and dark before you had sun and moon. Well, sure you did. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is you're looking for some reason to deny the biblical account of creation. All right? Now, here's the second thing about that, about this account of creation, and that is, how long did it take? How long did this take? Well, there's a lot of theories about that, and a lot of people got a lot of things to say about it. I think it took 6 literal days. Right? Some people say, well, a day doesn't have to mean a day. A day could mean, some of them say, thousands of years, and one term that is used is eons of time. A day could just represent eons of time. And in that is kind of hidden a desire to try to harmonize what people think of as evolution with the biblical account of creation. Some people aren't willing just to take God out of the equation. So they say, well, God used evolution and a long, long period of time, and it's just represented to us by days. Well, let's go back and examine the account and see if there's any credibility to that. Did you notice, as I read that, the repetition of evening and morning? There was evening and morning in verse 5 of day 1. In verse 8, there was evening and morning of day 2. In verse 13, there's evening and morning of day 3. Verse 19, there's evening and morning of day 4. Verse 23, there's evening and morning of day 5. Verse 31, there's evening and morning of day 6. Then, in chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, you've got day 7, which is the day of rest. Now, if you just read that, at face value, what would you think that's talking about? Evening and morning, day 1. Evening and morning, day 2. Evening and morning all the way down to day 6. And then day 7. Just common sense reading that, what would you take that to be?
A week.
6 days? A week? Well, yeah, you've really got to come up with some kind of creative thinking. You really got to be stretching things to make that be anything else other than 6 24-hour periods. You say, yeah, but there wasn't a sun. We've already talked about that. God didn't need a sun to make day and night. And God didn't need a sun to make a day. He added the sun to what he already had with day and night coming and days passing. He added the sun and the moon and the stars to that. The sun and the moon and the stars didn't make that. God created the days and the coming of day and night, coming of day and night, and then added to that the sun, the moon, and the stars at day 4. And so what you've got here is God, I think, going overboard. At each day, he's really going overboard to let you know for sure that this is a day. God didn't use evolution. God spoke it into existence on each day. He spoke, and things came about as he desired them to come about in a day's period. And so creation happened in a 6-day period, and God rested on the 7th day. Now I want you to take your Bibles and turn to the book of Exodus, and we're going to look at a couple of chapters here in Exodus and a couple of things that I think add a great weight to this argument that I'm making for creation in 6 days. Turn to Exodus chapter 16 and verse 19. And we're going to look at a few places here in Exodus 16. Let's start in Exodus 16 verse 19. Exodus 16. Here we're in the story of the children of Israel out in the wilderness. And God's feeding them with manna. And I'm going to break in on just part of the story. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Verse 19. Moses said, let no man leave it till the morning. That's manna. All right? Let no man leave it till the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not to Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning. And it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And then the sun waxed hot and melted, and it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, this is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which you will bake today, and sieve that which you will sieve, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to keep until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bade them, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moses said, eat that today, for today is the Sabbath unto the Lord. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. Now, remember on the 7th day, if you go back and look at Genesis chapter 2, you see that God took that 7th day and he sanctified it. Some of your translations say made it holy. The word holy comes from a translation of a Hebrew word, and I am terrible with Hebrew, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But the word that's translated Sabbath or holy means a day that is dedicated, it is set apart. The word holy means other than. God is holy. That means he's other than us. God's not in our category. All right? God's not like us. In fact, the Bible says God is holy, holy, holy. He's 3 times other than us. All right? That's God. So that word means that God set a day apart from all the other days. God made a separate day. He set it apart from all the other days. It's called the Sabbath day. That's that 7th day that God rested. Now, did God rest for eons of years? Or did God rest for one day? Well, when you move in later on in the Old Testament, we're going to begin to see God used that as a pattern to teach us to have a day other than the rest of the days. In fact, we already heard a sermon about that, hadn't we? God used that pattern of His rest on the seventh day as a pattern for what we're supposed to do, as He requires of us to have a day that is other than the rest of the days. And here, starting out with the nation of Israel in the wilderness, He begins that process. And He says there is a Sabbath day. There is a holy day. There is a day other than the rest of the days. And I expect you to observe that day. So on the sixth day, when you go out to gather your food, you get enough to do for the other day, the holy day, the sanctified day. You get enough to do for that day because it's going to be different. Not going to be any manna out there that you can pick up. You pick up what you want to eat on the Sabbath day, on the sixth day, and you have it ready because the day that's other than the rest of the days, the day that's different from everything else, is coming up. And you make it different. And it's interesting to me that the basis for that goes back to creation when God rested on the seventh day. Go to Exodus chapter 20, which is the passage Brother Roger has been preaching from. You'll turn over a few pages to Exodus chapter 20. And in verse 8, Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now, which is the Sabbath day? That's that seventh day. That's that day God rested on. Remember that day and keep it holy. What does the word holy mean? Other than. Remember that day and keep it other than the rest of the days. All right? It's separate from them. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath unto the Lord. In it thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor their daughters, or their manservants, or maidservants, or cattle, or strangers that are within thy gates. For in 6 days God made heaven and earth and sea, and all that is in them is, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. All right? What's the basis for having some other day? It's the creation account. That's the basis for it. Well, how long do we rest? Do we rest for eons of years? Or do we rest for one day? It's one day, right? It's one day out of 7 that we set aside as a day other than the rest of the day. It's a special day of worship. It's a special day of rest. It is something that we set apart that is special that one day a week. And what is the basis for that? Creation. That to me adds a tremendous weight to the argument of creation in 6 days. Because that is the basis for God's day of rest. We find one other place in the book of Exodus, and it's in chapter 31, that repeats the same clause. And if you want to read the whole thing, you can read from verse 12 all the way down through verse 17. Verse 17 says, "It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day He rested and was refreshed." There it is again. What is the basis for this day that's other than the rest of the days? Creation. Creation account is the basis for that. So when God rested on the seventh day, back in Genesis chapter 2, God was not necessarily weary. He was not necessarily worn out mentally, emotionally, and physically from all the work of creation. God was establishing a principle. He was establishing something that was going to come in the future that would be for us a day of rest. It was a day of a special day, a day of rest and worship. It was a sanctified day. It was a dedicated day. It was a holy day, dedicated unto Him, set apart unto Him for His purpose for us. And that day has its roots in the creation account. So I'm saying to you that if you're going to look at the creation account and ask the question, how long did that creation account take place? How much time is involved in that? I don't think from any way you look at it, you can come up with anything other than 6 days. Evening and morning, first day. Evening and morning to the 6th day. God rested on the 7th day and set aside a principle of rest that would be for us forevermore to come. And every time we rest on that 7th day, every time we take the 7th day as a day of special worship and special rest, we are reminded of God's great work in creation in 6 days and His setting aside a day of special worship and rest. Now there may be something even greater than that seen in this to come, and that would be God's rest in Jesus that's coming. Man, what a rest. Paul preached about that rest. The book of Hebrews talks about that rest in Christ. Oh, man. But this is for sure. And that is, God used His day of rest after creation as a basis for us to have a dedicated day, a sanctified day, a holy day, whatever you want to define that word. That would be a day, a special day for us. And since we use that as one day, and the basis for that is creation, then creation must have happened in 6 literal days, with God resting on that 7th day. Now, any question about that? Because that is a really big issue today. And I have taught that in a lot of places. And I find some good folks, I mean really good Bible-believing folks, that just have a hard time with that.
What do some people get to, like Saturday or Sunday, Bob? You know what I'm saying? Some
Okay.
people use
All right,
it.
that's a
I mean,
good
I'm just
question, Bill.
probably stupid, man.
In the New Testament era,
I'm glad that run.
our special day has changed from the Sabbath day, which was the 7th day, to the first day, which is Sunday. So it's actually changed from Saturday to Sunday, the way we count days. All right. Now, why is that? Why did that change? That's an excellent question. The answer to that is in the New Testament, we find that the early church began to worship on the first day of the week. And you can look, I believe it's Acts chapter 20 is one place where Paul talks about meeting with a group of believers to break bread and worship on the first day of the week. In the book of 1 Corinthians, when Paul talks about us giving, talks about our giving, he says, on the first day of the week, let people lay aside as God has prospered thee. So it becomes clear, Delbert, that in the New Testament, Christians changed their worship day from Sabbath day to the first day. So we worship on Sunday. Probably their motivation for that was the resurrection. All right? Jesus went to the cross on Friday, was in the cross by sundown on Friday and Saturday, and then resurrected on Sunday morning. And so their motivation for worshiping on the first day of the week probably had its primary roots in the fact that that was the day of resurrection. More than that, God's changed a lot of things. They no longer went to the temple. They no longer carried their sacrifices. All that took place on the Sabbath day. So they're making kind of a clean break from all that they used to do to something different. And so the Christians then began to worship on the first day of the week rather than on the Sabbath day. And that had to be hard for them. I mean, can you imagine doing the same thing all your life? Your daddy did it, your granddaddy did it, your great-granddaddy did it, and all your family's done it this way, and now God's changed that? Man, that had to be hard. That had to be really hard for people. And that's why you've got that period of time in the book of Acts where things are changing. Things are changing. Because it didn't happen overnight. Right? And it was tough on people. But that's a great question. Did that help?
Yeah.
You understand?
Oh, yeah.
All right. We'll start here. We'll start here next time, and we'll talk a little more. And I'll do my best to take your questions next time about evolution. Thanks for being here.